please put your hands together and help me give a warm welcome to our host, Mr. Dan O'Brien.
This is a thrill to be here. And we have Charity and Carlton with me this morning, and we're going to talk about hearing protection and kind of, these are our tools, and we work in an environment that purposely creates loud music, and we love it, and it's a joyous thing, but we want to protect how we are money makers, as we say. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them, if you don't know. And welcome, Charity, Lomax.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm a 1994 recording arts graduate. I've sort of had 3 chapters in my career. I worked at a recording studio for 9 years, primarily booking the studio was what I probably did the longest. And then I spent probably about 12 years on the road as a production assistant, a production coordinator, a road manager, a tour manager. And now I work for a company called Jerry Harvey Audio. We provide in-ear monitors, I have mine on right now, and hearing protection. So I'm very, very, very excited to do this talk because it's so incredibly important.
Hey, my name is Carlton Lynn. I'm also a 1994 recording arts graduate. Mixing engineer, recording engineer, and I've worked with some producers that monitor super loudly. So over my career, so I have a lot to talk about as far as hearing protection. So yeah, thanks.
I am a course director in Show Pro. I'm a musician for a long time. I work for the Orlando Philharmonic, and I work at a venue in town that has about a 2,000-seat cap. So I mix really quiet music and very loud music, in the same week sometimes. So hearing is important to me as a musician, for sure. And, again, like how we make our money. So, because we do this for a living and we need our hearing, is there anything, first of all, how often do you have your hearing tested?
You know what, to be honest, I haven't. Because of what I do, like when I worked in the recording studio, definitely there would be producers that would be like having on stun. And I'm like, I'm going to be in this other room over here just because it's just way too loud. And then when I was on the road, I was rarely ever out on the floor. I was backstage doing the stuff that I do now. And now, obviously, I'm guiding people to get the things to help preserve their hearing.
Awesome. I didn't know you were.
But I am going to get it tested because I am getting older. So I do plan on getting my hearing tested.
So yeah, I probably don't get mine tested enough, but at least every couple of years I get my ears tested. Yeah. So yeah.
I recently had it done, and the doctor's like, "Wow, you have great hearing for a guy your age," and I felt like I wanted something, like, right. Woo! I have been wearing hearing plugs for a really long time. I have a set on me now. I have a set in my car. I have a set in my work bag. I used to have a local company come in for the Show Pro students once a month, shoot our ears, keep our molds until we could afford to get in-ear monitors and/or plugs. And so I have them in 9 dB cut, 15 dB cut, and 25 dB cut. And I'm a big proponent of taking care of this stuff. So I was going to ask you, what is a great monitoring level for you when you're mixing? Like, do you have are you looking at an SPL meter when you mix, or?
Yeah. So a lot of times I'm in, especially by the way, you guys, I live and work in Japan now. So a lot of the studios I work at, sometimes they're smaller studios. So if I'm in a smaller studio, like the smaller rooms, it's usually like 83. You usually want to do a little bit louder, but I do like 83. In the smaller studios, just because it's smaller room, you start turning it up loud, it feels louder than it is. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, Charity, in your current position, are you working directly like artist relations? Are you going out and visiting people?
No, it's pretty much direct artist relations. I mean, I live in Nashville, which is Music City, and it's all kinds of music, not just country. And I get everything from, the people who are playing downtown. And let me tell you, like, it's basically Las Vegas. If you've never been to Nashville, but you have been to Vegas, it's Nash Vegas, really.
Exactly.
And if I go into, there's live music you can go to the airport, there's live music. You're walking to baggage claim, there's live music. You go downtown, every single bar has live music or a DJ. And I'll go into these places and I'm like, oh my God. First of all, just the volume of talk There's that, because people are trying to talk over the music. And then you've got amps on stage, and it's so incredibly loud. I'm like, I don't even know how these people do it. So I get the gamut of the A-list, arena artist, and then not down to, but, people that are playing downtown. So for me, what's been amazing is people are realizing, and these venues want to make it quieter. So in some of these venues, not having in-ear monitors is not an option. Yeah. You have to have them. Yeah. So, yeah, I get the gamut.
So I am in a band where everybody is on ears, and I don't use an amp anymore. And I was hoping to talk to, who our other gentleman that was supposed to be with us this morning about that. I believe that his band is all on ears, but they might use wedges as well. So that's kind of a weird thing to me. And then, not having amps and going direct. I mean, I use a Kemper. 10 years ago, I would put my amp under the stage or behind the stage or turn it around or something like that. So, I always say in my class that stage volume is the devil. It's not as acceptable anymore. And I think my band gets booked because we're a really quiet band. I play rooms with an SPL meter on the back, and they're like, you break that, we're not having you back. And, places are pretty serious about that. I think that, we have a responsibility to, our patrons and our audience to kind of help them out and protect them. Noise-induced hearing damage is a real thing, and it's cumulative, so prevention is the key. So let me ask you, your company is based out of Orlando, right?
Yes, we are, right down the road.
So I know that they, when my friends, I'm currently was hanging out with some of the crew from Billy Joel, who's in town this weekend, and will be later today. They get pretty excited when they hear that somebody from Jerry Harvey's coming, to the show tonight. They all
my God, it's crazy when we show up at a gig.
Oh yeah, I sat in the front row next to one of your reps last time I saw him, and I was like, oh yeah, they're like, ooh, we're all getting our ears tonight, Yeah. I like yours. What kind are yours?
These are JH13 V2s, and they are custom designed.
Yeah.
We have some great art designers.
Oh, man, I want a pair of Roxanne's really bad, but oh, well, not in the budget currently. So do you wear hearing protection when you go to shows?
Absolutely. I have several, I've got lots of purses, and there's earplugs in all of them.
Nice.
And it's not even something, when you're young, you just don't think about it. And that's the thing, like, you're having fun. I talked to a young lady yesterday, and she was telling me that she'd gone to a festival, and you want to be up front, and you're standing in front of, this PA for, upwards to, 30 minutes to an hour, 90 minutes. And then you come home, and even when I was that person, I never really thought about the ringing in my ears, when I was young, but now it's just, God, loud music, I can feel it in my body. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to stand as far away from the PA as I can. But I have different filters for different environments. If I'm in a small bar, I probably have a -25. If I'm at an arena show and I'm not sitting close to the PA, I'm probably a -15. And for those of you that don't know what that means, it's basically you're still hearing full fidelity for the most part. We're just bringing the volume down by that, whatever that rating is.
Yeah, it's a flat frequency response. So, a lot of the earplugs will have an interchangeable filter, and you can decide how much. So as a musician, I wear 9s, and you think, because I got a crash cymbal right on this side of my head, and I don't enjoy that sometimes. But it also helps because you have head tone. So what does a singer do when they can't hear themselves? They stick their, they get this head tone. It kind of helps. I actually enjoy music more when I'm wearing earplugs, sorry. I do have in-ear monitors as well. I think that as a monitor engineer, we have to help our artists kind of get used to that. We're not going to get Mick Jagger to switch to in-ears now. You know what I mean?
He uses them.
Well, you know what I mean. So, we want to get people when they're coming in. You're coming into the business with pretty young and fresh and good ears, and so we want to take care of that. And I think that's up to us, as seniors in this industry to help people do that. In the studio, like you had talked about people that set their monitors on stun or whatever. If you're in that environment, is there something that you would do to protect yourself?
So what I did is starting out as an assistant engineer, like working in the studio. So and everybody, I'm sure you're aware of, you're going to go in the studios and these people listening at concert levels. You have like main monitors, Augsburger monitors, Westlake monitors, even like some of the big barefoot setups. I mean, they get super loud because you're like a meter or 2 meters away from them. So, and some of the producers, especially in writing sessions, they're going to have it blasting, I mean, for hours. So, you know, very early on, I knew what I was in for, and I just carried. In the beginning, I carried just like little foamy guys and had those in because I wasn't necessarily the engineer. I was the assistant, but I was the one that was patching stuff right by the speakers. You know, so it was just blasting in my face. So I kept those in all the time. Of course, when you move up to like engineer level, you're sometimes having to make decisions at high volume. So I invested in some, you know, like 6 dB cuts or like 9 dB cuts. I forgot what I had at the time. And so you do have to make some decisions, and I would like pop these in and out whenever the producer would ask me to make some kind of critical decision. But yeah, more than not, it would be literally sometimes like 8 and 10 hour sessions where the volume. I mean, it was the main monitors were on at at least at 10. Wow. For a long time.
And if they write a hit, they're going to listen to it 12 times.
Yes, exactly. So you just have to kind of be prepared for that from the jump.
So, I mean, keeping these noise level down, I think, certainly at a venue or in where there's public involved, it's more than just like keeping peace with the neighbors. I've always kind of been known as an engineer who mixed a little quieter. When people, if I ever got critiques, it was like, I would have mixed louder. But I mean, that's the environment we work in. Everybody can do your job, or everybody thinks they can do it. But I work, like I had said, in an environment where I mix really, really quiet sometimes. They don't, for the Philharmonic, they do not want to hear the PA at all. They don't want to hear anything, but everybody wants to hear. And it's a very critical crowd. They will tell you what they want. They will come right up to you and say, I can't hear it, or I can't hear the oboe, or something like that. And then I work in an environment where a lot of the young engineers just want to beat the sub up like it owes them money or something. And it can be a lot, and it's fatiguing. And I think you fatigue your audience. Is that what happens when you're, say, in a studio for a long period of time, and like if you don't wear hearing protection, does it fatigue you? Do your ears get tired? Do they,
So recently, I don't have to worry about that too much. Most of the time I'm mixing, so I can kind of, set my levels. I think it really just depends on what type of monitors are in the room, but I'm listening at, relatively moderate levels.
Yeah,
so
you said
don't have to worry.
83 or so? That's pretty good.
I try to keep it. And if I don't have a meter in the room, I just kind of set it at one spot and leave it usually, so.
I do some mastering as well, and certainly over, in the times of the pandemic, I did a lot of it from a home studio. And so, I would find myself, listening pretty quiet and then running out at 3 a.m. and listening to my mix in my car, that's always my final litmus test for me is like, if it sounds good there. But, I think that a low volume, I was really happy to hear you say that. So in your production career, do you think it's your, did you take it upon yourself to help, plan speaker layouts, try to get the stage as quiet as possible? Is it your responsibility to? For
what I was doing, no. But one of the things that we did take responsibility is we always had earplugs, foamies.
Yeah.
So if people in the audience, felt that it was too loud, or if you're walking around the floor and you see someone's got their kid there, because sometimes people don't have the wherewithal to think like this, 5-year-old child should not be in this environment with this volume level. So whether it's the muffs, loaning them to someone, or handing someone a set of earplugs. And here's the other thing, there's pyro. That's a whole other thing. If you have pyro on a show and there's concussions, like, that'll blow your ears out. But I will say this.
Sometimes feel like it's twice as loud as the PA.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, whoa, you kind of jump,
But
it opens all the gates on everything. And imagine if that's in your in-ears. If a guy like Bob, and I know Bob, Cowan, he's the monitor engineer for Metallica, and he has to deal with that. If that concussion is in this star's head at the time, you're going to have some problems. They're not going to be happy with it for sure.
Well, when you were talking about ear fatigue, I'll tell you, for me personally, like, I love watching movies at home. I have a full surround system, and I want to like watch it at movie theater volume. But when you've sat and watched a movie for 90 minutes, you know, you don't realize how loud it is, right? So I'll come downstairs the next morning, I'm gonna watch the news, and I was like, oh my God, I was listening to the TV that loud, you know, and you just kind of don't realize when you're in it that, you know, you are just in this environment for a very, very long period of time. And over time, like I said, when you're young, you don't think about stuff like that. But I deal with artists that are young and that are at, you know, the other half of their career that wish that they had known the things that we're talking about now.
So I do know people that have noise-induced hearing loss, and I have a friend that has something called diplacusis. So each ear hears sound as a different pitch. So this is a person who's from this industry who can't listen to live music anymore. He can't stand to go out to even like a nightclub or anything like that because he's got a beep and a boop going on at the same time, and it can, you know, really drive you crazy. And it's from loud music. So, you know, those of you who wear headphones a lot, as a teacher here, I can be in a classroom like this, and every once in a while, I'll hear what somebody in the back row is listening to, you know, and it's, you know, I feel like it's my responsibility to, you know, one, you're disturbing the class, but two, what are you doing? You want to be in this business. What are you doing to your ears back there? Is it really worth it, what you're listening to? So I think if, you know, as an employer or as management or somebody in the field, that we should take responsibility that we, you know, that your staff you have better retention, you have better buy-in, your people feel like you care about them, and you know, this is a good thing for your crew. So I always have foamies with me. I go out to see other bands. I carry foamies, and like if I see a bartender or something, like put those things in. Like this is ridiculous, you know. It doesn't make it better volume, for sure. So when you go see people now, do you shoot ears, or do you?
I work with an audiologist, so yeah. I mean, I was thinking.
You send them to somebody?
Yeah, well, no, she comes with me.
Oh, okay, cool.
She's traveling, which is awesome.
Awesome.
I mean, a lot of times, you know, people will come into our office, or a lot of times we talk about going to a show. Like, I'm like, oh, right, well, you know, Kanye's coming to town. There's some people on the crew that want to get in-ears. So, you know, I'll have them put it on the day sheet. And when we show up, it's like, hey, JH Audio's here. You know, everybody wants to get their impressions done.
I've seen that.
Yeah, so I don't do it, but I work with an audiologist, and there's like, you know, a couple of things. I've learned a lot about your ear. Your ear is like a self-protecting body part. So, you know, people get embarrassed when they know they have a lot of wax in their ears, but your ear is doing what it's supposed to do, so don't be embarrassed. Sometimes you don't know that you're that person, that is a, you know, some people are just waxy, whether you're in a loud environment or not. But that's nothing to be embarrassed about. It doesn't mean that you're dirty or anything like that. It just means you need to get your ears cleaned out, or you don't use a Q-tip. So, you know, these are just things you don't know until you know. But yeah, we do go out, but I do work with an audiologist.
I think we're more aware than ever of this in our industry, but I mean, that old school mentality is out there. You know, like, I get used to it, or it doesn't bother me anymore. And that means you've probably had a lot of hearing damage already, and, you know, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So, but we're talking about like shifting a paradigm with this, and why we're talking to you all today is like, take care of these are your money-making things. These are your tools. Take care of them. It's not worth it to whatever the latest hit you're listening to is, or to be that close to the subwoofer, you know. We always say, if you want to get the best concert experience, go stand by the front of house, right?
Absolutely.
Right? That's the mixer's reference. You know, that's where it's always going to sound better. Even with all the tools we have to be able to move around a little bit, it's still going to sound good at front of house. So when you're in the studio, and if you have somebody that, I mean, do you have to acquiesce to like the talent, say, who, like, he's talking, he wants to hear, like she had said, the song 10 times in a row at max volume?
Yeah, so there's, you know, you do have to acquiesce to whoever the client is. So I'll tell you a story. So it's been many years now, but I was mixing something for Andre 3000 in Atlanta. It was for his, remember the cartoon he did? He did like a little cartoon.
No.
Yeah, class of 2000. So I was mixing a thing for class of 2000, and I had the mix done, and then Andre came in, and he had like certain things he wanted to do, but he turned. I was working on Yamaha NS10s, but he turned the volume up as far as it would go, and he was monitoring at that level. So I was like, I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, and I was like, sorry, man, I just slid my workstation over. I slid it all the way over to the side of the room, so I was actually mixing from the side of the room. He was just sat in front of the speakers, and for a long time, and that was where he was monitoring. So hopefully his hearing is okay, but NS10s are like flamethrowers. So when you're mixing at high volume with those guys, it's really fatiguing. But that's what I've had. I had to move out of the way because I couldn't take it. But
I have a good story about that. So I was an assistant engineer at Westlake Audio, and Westlake actually made speakers as well. But we would, everybody's got NS10s. I think we had NS10s, Genelecs, and our mains were Westlakes. And when I talk about writing a hit, this is Casey and JoJo, and the song is All My Life. Like, when we were cutting that, everybody in the room knew that song was a hit, right? And we would listen to it every day. Every day, every day, every day. And when people would come in, we listened to it, and we listened to it again. So it was like, good God, I don't even know what time of night it was. And somebody came in and they wanted to play it. And it was so loud, and it was really dark in the room. And I was like looking, and I'm like, is that smoke? and then I was like, hold on, turn it down. So someone switched down to the Genelecs without turning it down. The subs are like popping out. Yeah. I'm like, turn on the lights. They had set the mains on fire. That's how loud they were listening. Set the mains on fire. So there you have it.
That's rock and roll, right? So OSHA requires that that employers evaluate engineering and administrative controls. So, if you work for a venue like I do, and you have lots of people exposed to loud volumes, that we need to, we have a duty to our people to protect them. And I think, as in the title here, like hearing protection, I think is the last resort. Maybe turn it down, maybe move speakers, move towards a silent stage. I've seen a lot of that. Like Charity had mentioned, I work with bands at a 2,000 cap on the way up and on the way down, right? So that's my clientele. And I see a lot of people shifting towards, quieter environments, at least for the performer and, the crew. So the house people, depending on who's mixing, can still be pretty loud, and it's scary. I think that we should, there's a culture shift to try to protect the performers so we have some longevity in our career. So any other great stories about massive amounts of volume and, dealing with people like that?
I got a good one.
I want to hear it.
My office is actually in a rehearsal facility. So it's the thing that's amazing on the opposite ends of the spectrum. There's an artist that's a client of mine that was rehearsing there. I would have never known that they were in the building because they have a 100% quiet stage. 100%. Couldn't hear a peep. And they were maybe, there's one rehearsal room right next to me, and they were just at the other end of the hall. Conversely, I was sitting in my office one day, and I was like, I know that song. I'm singing along. The Black Crowes were on the opposite side of the building, right? And so I ended up running into someone. I'm like, oh, who are you here with? He's like, I'm with the Black Crowes. So I came into the room. That's a pretty good-sized band, and then they have background singers and this, that, and the other, and the principal members of the band. The only people on in-ears were the background singers. It was all wedges. They had flown side fills. It was so loud in there with my door closed, 2 doors in their rooms closed. I could hear them enough to sing along from the other side of. So I actually they started their tour in Nashville. And let me tell you, I definitely had my earplugs in. Yeah. And one of the things that's interesting is, when we talk about older artists, they want to feel the crowd. They don't want to feel cut off. And that's why a lot of them are reluctant to use monitors, in-ear monitors, because of that. Well, there's ways around that. Yeah. Room mics. But for some people, they're still really reluctant. But I definitely, when you talk about a shift in the narrative, now it seems, people are getting like a lot of young people are getting record deals and management. And the next step in that process is to come see me to get in-ear monitors.
To never experience loud side fills and wedges, right?
Never.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So to give you another idea of how loud volumes can get in the studio. So the studio I was working at with Leslie Brathwaite back in the day, it was Dallas Austin's studio. And so this was, well-designed studio. One of the same architects that built some of the studios around here did that place. So it's in a brick building, and then each studio is encapsulated in, big concrete block. And then the building next to it is also a brick building, right? And with earth between it, right? So that company in the next building started complaining about the noise level because low end travels through brick and earth, and the wavelength, you can feel it really far away. So they were complaining, got the cops called on them a few times, and finally, the studio manager was arrested and put in jail.
Wow.
Because of the volume, so the only solution at that point, we bought the building next door. We bought
The noise police are real.
Yeah, and it was a well-designed studio, but that's the low end, was just busting through there. And that shows you how loud the
That reminds me of the story with Rock Lidditz, where in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, is a large rehearsal facility, kind of like where Charity works, I guess. Lots of top-name bands come in there, but it's in the middle of Amish country, and there's a farm on the far side of it, and the low end was disrupting the dairy cows, and the Claires had to put millions of dollars into soundproofing the foundation so this gentleman's cows would produce milk again. Yeah, right?
You just don't think of just how far-reaching it is. You don't really think, just how it affects other people. And like you said, if I'm sitting next to someone and I can hear everything that you are listening to in your headphones, it's way too loud.
Yeah.
Way too loud.
Yeah. That's what I say. When I can hear it in the back of a room like this, and your teachers can, and and they're like, okay, well, you're back there listening. That's probably not a good thing. But if we can hear it, you're disrupting us, and so now it's up to us. We're going to take some questions from the audience. If people, we got lots of hands. Awesome. All right, give us a second. We'll get a mic. Here we go.
Hello there. At the beginning of this talk, you were saying, Carlton, that you listen in your studio at 83 SPL, I think you said?
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
Number one, how do you know that that's where you're listening? Number two, do you have any tips for not getting excited and turning it up?
Well, so 83, if I'm mixing at 83, there's usually a meter in there, and sometimes I'll start at my session out. I'll have pull up a session that has tones on there, like noise, and then I can kind of pull that up and then use the meter to get it right at 83 and leave the volume at that spot. And so the way I keep from getting excited, I just know that if I start moving it around, that's kind of, it's like this makes you're chasing a moving target as far as balance and frequency and everything. So every time I reach for it, I slap myself with the other hand. So I try to keep it at that spot. What I will do is occasionally, if I start having to do some editing that's not really critical mix decisions, I will hit the dim switch on the console and just kind of work at a little bit lower volume to kind of give my ears a break. But I always go back to that original reference level.
And then
I think that's a lot harder for a live performer, as somebody who plays. I want to turn up a lot of times because of that, because, excitement and playing. And, you, again, slap yourself, don't do it. Or take the controls away.
Do you have suggestions on a brand of SPL meter that I should buy? Because that's my next thing now. And then
you can download an app.
Yeah.
No way.
Rudimentary, yeah. I have one.
Sure.
Cool.
I have one on my phone.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So, they're pretty cheap, certainly in the live arena, $50, $70, something like that. You can get a pretty decent one. Lots of apps for it. So if you're mixing in the box, shouldn't be too much of a problem for you. There you go. Boom. Would take, okay, hey, how are you?
Hi. So I was just had a question. How do you guys go about cleaning your ears? Because I heard like Q-tips are like really bad for your ears because they just push the wax like further in.
I'll take that one. There's minute clinics like at CVS, grocery store, pharmacies have clinic. You know, I don't know what the chains are here, but you can just go there. I mean, it's funny because a lot of times people will come in, they're like, "I'm sorry, my ears probably aren't clean," and they're not. They're fine. But yeah, you can go to any walk-in clinic and get your ears cleaned. Once you know that you are the person that does produce a lot of wax, there's this stuff called Debrox, which you can buy over the counter, and it's like this little oily material. You put it in your ear, and it's got a little bulb syringe, and then you just flush your ears out. But you can always just go to a walk-in clinic and get. But I will say this: once you know that you are someone that does produce a lot of wax, don't use Q-tips because you're just going to compact it. But like I said, for me, I use Q-tips all the time, but I don't produce a lot of wax.
Hold on, we're going to get okay, here we go. Good morning.
Hi. So I wanted to know from the three of you that what are your best techniques that help you continuously preserve your hearing after working long periods of time with music? Like, how do you keep up, like after working, on a mix, how can you still go on and keep up with trending music, like the ear fatigue?
With the ear fatigue, just give yourself a break. So, if, for example, if I mix, all day, all evening, like the last thing I want to do is like listen to music sometimes. So I just kind of give myself a break, like on the way home. Don't listen. When I lived in Atlanta and I had a car, I don't have a car now. I would just go home in silence, and then same thing, get home, maybe not even watch TV or whatnot. So you just got to give yourself some time off, So just kind of preserve your ears for mixing. I think it's the same as like singers. A lot of times they, when they're on tour or recording, sometimes they won't talk. They just don't talk. So they preserve their voice for when they actually have to perform. So
Rest.
Yeah.
I mean, even for me on long drives, like I'm not an artist and I don't mix, but I love listening to music and I always have. Like just recently, I knew I had a 10-hour drive, and after a while, I just get tired of listening to music, and so I just either turn off the music altogether or I'll put on like a podcast, something that's just talking in a lower volume. But yeah, you just have to give your ears a break.
I'm the same with Charity. It's get away. If I'm at the venue and an opener or somebody's really loud, I'll just go outside. I'll just walk outside for a while and just relax. I'll go sit in my car for 5 minutes or whatever, whatever it takes. So same thing.
Even going outside is too loud. So do you always, like, for example, even right now I'm wearing these earplugs.
Yeah.
Do you always, all the time, just have to live your life like this?
I think that's you. I mean, like, some people are a lot more sensitive to sound than other people are. So clearly you are very sensitive to it. Me, not as much, but it's so subjective. It really, really depends on the person.
Intensity, pitch, exposure, age, and personal susceptibility. Those are the 5 factors of hearing, issues. So, you just may be real sensitive right now,
And it goes along with what you mentioned at the beginning of this talk was, the hearing damage is a cumulative thing. So just for example, you said like going outside and maybe it's noisy. So, in the city, there's lots of noises. So, I know a lot of engineers that live in like Manhattan or whatever, they say they wear earplugs from home to the studio because there's, fire trucks going by and the city's just loud. The same as in Tokyo when like fire trucks go by, I stop and put my fingers in my ears if I don't have earplugs in. So yeah, there's all kinds of normal noises throughout the day that are louder than they should be. So yeah.
I heard about this ratio. Also, my name is Ian, and I'm in music production, where it's like if you mix for 2 hours, you take like a 20-minute break. But I don't know if that ratio is accurate, and you're more or less supposed to play it by ear, no pun intended, and kind of just like feel it out to where your ears feel rested, then you go back to work.
I think it's a personal thing. So if your ear, you'll know if your ears are tired or fatigued. So I think it's on a personal basis.
Totally. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I kind of get like a little fidgety. So when I do that, I'll kind of just stop and like kind of get up and walk. I try to get up and walk around anyway for my back and my body too. So trying to use that time to also give yourself an ear break, like walk around the room, walk outside or whatever. So it's totally a personal thing. But I think I've heard like what a proper ratio is, but I forgot what it is.
Here we go. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So if you're needing something affordable, what company would you suggest?
What was the first part of it?
If you're needing like an earplug that's affordable.
Plugs or monitors, who do you think Charity would say?
And let me just preface this with, I'm not here to sell anybody. I don't care where you go to buy said product, as long as you get it. There's a couple of companies.
I have a couple friends that own these companies, and I will say that her company is considered probably the best.
I mean, we do sell earplugs, and like we are local, so I can give you that information. But there's a number of different companies that sell the custom molded plugs, and like I said, there's a couple here in town. I work for one, but we sell earplugs and ear monitors as well.
I kind of have a question though related to the earplug thing. So, like early on in my career, I invested in like the cut like 6 dB cut earplugs, but I like quickly got over it because I come home at 6 a.m. and throw my jeans in the washing machine, and I washed them like a couple times. So it's like after throwing away like $500, $600, I was like, okay, I'm just going to use the foamies. So now the earplugs, are those like, does it screw them up if they get washed?
So there's a company that I know makes a plug. They call it a catamaran, and it's basically for underwater or for your ears. So that but it's a pretty heavy cut. You're not going to get a 6 dB or something. You're going to get more like 25 out of it.
Okay, gotcha.
They make them for waterproof, but that filter, I think, is probably not waterproof at all.
Right. I'd like just completely ruined mine.
Yeah. I've lost a bunch of them, by the way. Yeah. Okay. So at $100 a pop, it's still worth it, though.
Hi, hello. I'm Joy. I'm music business. So quick backstory. I work at a major theme park, and the venue that I work at specifically is like one of the loudest on property. I think our platform is like at 85 decibels. So I have a lot of experience with, like ear fatigue and going from like very loud to like very low sounds. And I noticed it's been causing me like a lot of like sensory overload. So I don't know if like you guys, at like concerts or anything, or like while you're working, have had to deal with that. And if you have, like, what are some of the tips and tricks that you use to overcome that while you're on the job?
Earplugs. It's interesting because another component to the ear, it's ear, nose, and throat. All of that stuff works together. Your sinuses, all of that is, there's a reason why they have ENTs. All I could say for me personally is just get earplugs. Yeah, that's all.
And you can buy relatively inexpensive earplugs. They don't have to be $100 or more a pair. They start at $5. And foamies, I carry foamies with me all the time. Followed me to the car. I got a box of them in my car, so.
Yeah, and here, just as a side note, if you go to a concert that's really, really loud, usually the ushers or security people have earplugs on them. So if you go to a show and you're like, man, this is too much, just go up to someone that works there, and because it is, OSHA, it is something that they usually have on them.
I feel like too, like when you're doing something like that, like kind of need to stay hydrated. I feel like when I'm like working in the studio, and because I'll drink way too much coffee. I start drinking coffee, and I think the caffeine actually starts affecting your hearing, and you start getting dehydrated. Like drink water, keep yourself hydrated, and that kind of helps for the sensory overload. I feel the same way sometimes, like too much coffee and not enough water and mixing, and you're kind of like, and you're like, okay,
take a breath.
Take a breath, drink some water,
go for a walk,
yeah,
breathe.
Yeah.
That's what I have a lot of electronic music that comes in my venue, and for DJs, for lack of a better term. And sometimes that low end just is a lot, and so I'll just go outside and get some air and walk around. I think Carlton brings up a good thing. Staying hydrated is really important.
I'll tell you this: when you talk about low end, we went to go see Kanye West, right? So we weren't there to see him specifically, but people on the crew. And we were at the Bridgestone Arena, which is about 17,000 seater. He was playing there that night, and we were in one of the hockey players' locker rooms. They started doing line check. And he doesn't have a band, so this is all, it's all the track, right? It was so loud. I was inside of a locker room. It was so loud that it was rattling the lockers. To me, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, but so I was gonna go to the show that night, at the time, I think my earplugs were in my office, so I went home and got my in-ears, this is not filtered, so I'm just basically plugging up my ears because it was so incredibly loud. And sometimes artists, the engineer would think better of it, but your artist is dictating. Like, we had one artist that said it needs to sound good on YouTube. So it's like, really? But that's a thing. So a lot of times, the engineers can't necessarily dictate the volume or the mix or what have you.
That's a good question. You know what? I have something for you.
Yeah.
This is for you. That was a really good question. Thank you very much. We have some swag for you.
Oh, thank you.
Hey.
My name is Unique, and I'm in the music business program. And as a singer, I know sometimes in the recording studio, you turn the volume up to get a feel. What I wanted to know is, do they have those customized ones that you can use in the recording booth to record with? Do they make them?
Yeah, you can use them for whatever you want to use them for, but I'll say this. Usually in the studio, you want reference. You want something that's not, you don't want a lot of coloration. You want to be able to hear, the music exactly how you are recording it. So for me, I do have artists that do use them in the studio, but that's not what you're using to monitor, as far as I know.
Well, I have experience with both. So I was just telling Charity earlier that some of the boy bands that I'm working with in Japan, so their managers come in and they bring the little box and bam, all the guys, all their in-ear monitors, and they say, oh, you want to use headphones? You want to use in-ear monitors? Some of the guys will pop their in-ears in, and they have usually a 1/4-inch plug, their adapter that'll just pop into the cue box. Some just use the the headphones that the studio provides. It just depends on the person. So yeah,
and
totally
they're made either flat frequency or a bump in them, so that may affect what you're doing as well. There may be some coloration to it.
Thank you.
All right, we got time for about one more question. Hi.
Hi, good morning. I'm Tessa. I'm also music business. I also work at a venue in town. So do you recommend investing in custom earplugs or something, since I'm around loud music all the time, or kind of just sticking with the foamies? Because I can confirm I do always either have a couple pairs on me or I know where they are at all times. But yeah, do you recommend investing in custom ones to keep on me, or just sticking with the regular foam ones?
They're going to work for you that much better. Any earplug is better than no earplug. But if you have the money, like I said, at our place, then we have a couple of different ones. So when we talk about filtered plugs, like I said, that's you're hearing full fidelity, but we're turning the volume down. And then we just have standard plugs where you're minus 26 dB, just shutting it off. So if like I said, if I were just standing and working or doing security where I didn't need to hear the music or anybody talking to me, I would just get standard plugs.
Or you're a cameraman, or you're a lighting person, or something like that. But plus, I'll say that they're way more comfortable. You can wear them for a longer period of time. Foamies are,
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Anytime you're trying to have to make some critical decisions, you should probably invest in some good in-ear monitors.
The price range is all over the place. So find what fits you, but $100 is not a lot. For me, it's a good investment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I think our time is up here, and it's been really nice to talk to you, and thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you too.